OutKick 360 is back. Friday edition is here alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Koharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton, Lance Lee, Jacob Swanson. Sarah Triplett is our production assistant today. David Reed is the production extraordinaire. He is the chairman of the board, and he's doing it all.
Does it today. All. He really does it all.
Becca Risley with a well-deserved day off. Sleepy Danny just waking up, grabbing some coffee. Good morning, sir. Gentlemen, good morning. Hope you're doing well.
Every day I wake up and I think, you know who deserves a day off? People like Becca Risley, David Reed, Lance, Jacob. You know what I think to myself doesn't ever deserve a day off? Sleepy Dan. That's who does not deserve a day off.
He's and you know who's taking the day off?
He's just taking an impromptu day
Danny.
off. Yeah. It's every day's
That's
a day
how good
off.
he is.
And when every day's a day off, you really don't deserve a day off. And that's kind of Dan's existence.
I wonder what he's got
now.
Contractually in terms of vacation time.
You don't need it when you sleep.
Again, yeah. Life is a vacation for Sleepy Dan.
Hit us up on YouTube, OutKick 360's YouTube channel. We're going to be tweeting that out throughout the show today. We hope that you'll subscribe. You're likely already subscribed to OutKick's YouTube page. We have the OutKick 360 channel, which we launched yesterday for the first time on the live stream. You can watch that live with us as we stream live every day at this time. Again, subscribe, hit that alert button, ring that bell so you're notified every time we go live and every time we post new content. That is OutKick 360's YouTube page. And if you have an Amazon device, you can ask Alexa to search out OutKick 360. It will automatically pop up for you. But again, we hope you'll subscribe and join the chat room on that feed. And you can find us everywhere. If you're listening to the podcast, we appreciate that. If you're watching the feed through the YouTube channel at Volquest right now on delay, thank you. And we look forward to bringing the Volquest Power Hour to you each and every week. Brent Hubbs with us later this afternoon. John Loar, who is heading up Music City Baseball, the Nashville Stars. A lot of talk this week about the Oakland A's and are they leaving the Bay Area, where they may go. Portland, Vegas, and Nashville are the three cities mentioned for Major League Baseball. John Loar will join us on the show coming up in about 30 minutes as we discuss the real possibilities of the Oakland A's to the Music City, to Nashville, and the other teams that have been involved in this, the Tampa Bay Rays, expansion discussion for Major League Baseball. We'll get into all that with John Loar coming up in about 30 minutes. Guys, a lot to get to. NFL headlines. Paul's going to be busy starting tomorrow with practices that are back. I'm headed out of town, otherwise I would be there. The Titans have their rookies in. Football's back for rookies across the country this weekend.
Smaller and more compact thing, at least here in Nashville, draft class, undrafted rookies, only 5 tryout players allowed. And, there's a limited what you can do if you don't draft a quarterback. And the Titans have Brady White from Memphis as one of their tryout players.
You have to use a spot for that.
Yeah, and, how much can you get done? They have, I think, a half dozen guys who are eligible to be there who have been with them before. But it's a small collective, and some positions aren't going to have very many guys working with the position coach at that stage of practice. And that's not just the case with this team. That's the case with many teams.
I want to get back to, just quickly, John Loar, who you mentioned, because I've seen and heard a lot of this, and this is sort of a show takeaway for me and what we're going to try to do. So many people discount Nashville Stars in Music City Baseball without talking to the people behind the organization. What I hope to do with our show is to talk to the people behind these organizations. We are going to ask the pertinent questions to John Loar about the viability of Nashville as a Major League Baseball city. This is not just a Nashville story. You could pick your city, and we could talk about these issues surrounding public versus private funding, your viability as a Major League sports city, and everything else. But I'm glad that we're getting John Loar on, because I don't know about you guys, but I see a lot of talk of, forget about Nashville as a Major League Baseball city, not going to happen. This is a Ponzi scheme. These guys don't know what they're doing. They don't have the backing, and maybe that's true. But one thing we're going to do on the show is bring those people to the show to ask them those questions so we can get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, and there are a lot of questions. I mean, they're putting infrastructure in place ahead of things, which is
Tons of
smart.
questions.
But also, how realistic is it that they plug in to something or get something? I think the two things coming together, them having something in place and then them being the people that MLB wants to deal with if they're in an expansion situation for Nashville, there's a bridge to be built there. And they're trying to build it. I'm not against that, but it's also awfully ambitious.
Saw this last night.
This is
speaking
unbelievable.
of Major League Baseball and stadiums. This was from yesterday, earlier in the day, and we saw this one-punch knockout. I saw this on social media, tweeted it out. The response to this, I haven't heard anyone disagree. I said this is possibly the greatest stadium knockout in the history of one-punch fights. Padres fan comes up and just destroys a Colorado Rockies fan in one punch. Now, this is the quick version video that I posted. There are lengthier versions where you see him carried out. There are two legends to this story. First is the guy throwing the punch and the one-punch knockout, which lands as clean as you're ever going to see in a fan versus fan fight.
I mean, his head snaps
Number two
back.
is the other legend is the guy getting hit who, after coming to, refused to press charges against the guy throwing the punch. There are two legends to this story, and for those saying assault and battery, it's not the case, because the guy that just got laid out did not press charges.
So is he conceding?
I would love to know what was said ahead of time.
So do we take that as a concession that he deserved it?
I take it as
he
a
was
concession
talking some level of smack
there's a lot more than a guy running up and throwing a haymaker.
Or he's plotting his revenge.
Or that.
I don't want the authorities involved. I'm going to go smack this guy in the head one time when he's not expecting it. That's the next step.
Just breaking the. I couldn't stop watching this last night because there's the guy sitting down next to the guy who gets punched in the hat, who in the ninth inning he's like, get off me, shoves him off like we're in a tight game here, don't fall back on me. This is like the production guy in New York City falling back on Paul as he's trying to host a radio show.
Now,
and then there's another guy that walks up on him and says, man, what? He sees the punch and he thinks about intervening, but then says, you know what's not worth it for me.
well, it's over by the time he gets there. I think there's a fascinating element to me here is the person sitting. Keep it rolling. I can't get enough. There's a person sitting next to the guy who's hit,
yes,
who merely puts his arm up like, I don't want to be involved in this like I would do. But all of a sudden, serves as the brace for this guy to fall over onto. That's the person I want to hear from, his vantage point on this. Is it a guy? Is it a woman? I don't even know. But he has his arm up.
He's wearing a Troy Tulowitzki jersey, it looks like,
yes,
just by the ski I see on the
end. And again, it looks
jersey.
like the guy sitting is like Paul on Radio Row in New York City as the production guy who was pulling cords, fell backwards and tripped over cords.
That guy I got up him. Like, I got a big issue with this guy.
Right? He doesn't participate at all.
Well, I guarantee you the dude that got punched deserved it with whatever he was saying and whatever trash he was talking. But I'm looking at the guy with him. That's got to be his buddy. He's sitting right next to him, and his response is to throw a dead body off of him in disgust. This is your friend.
He doesn't throw it.
You need to get new friends.
He puts his arm, but he doesn't throw.
Paul annoys the piss out of me a lot of times. But if I'm sitting with him at a ball game and some bro comes up and punches him in the face,
have my back.
I'm getting up and smacking the guy if that happens. I don't care what Paul said to him if he punched my buddy. And meanwhile, this dude who I wanted to get on the show is just sitting there tossing his buddy off like a dead sardine off of his lap after he gets laid out.
Then the other guy comes and he puts his hands up like with a shrug. Like by the time he gets there, it's over. He's
the
like,
guy who stands up,
I missed it.
The guy who stands up is like, hey man, don't do that.
Oh, it's over.
Yeah, it's over.
The dude that stands up and shrugs the shoulders looks like the shrug from The Last Dance from the security guard when he beats Jordan in quarters. Yeah. He kind of gives the, really?
What can I do?
What's going on? What's happening here, guys?
The glasses that fly off of this guy's head too.
Oh.
I
would venture
the sunglasses just are just
Well, and
destroyed.
This guy is out for some time. This is not a quick out.
The soul
and up.
has left the body.
I don't know. I bet he was up pretty quickly.
How quickly?
Within 3 to 5 seconds.
I'm giving
he was
it 10.
probably
I'm
starting
setting the
propped
over
up.
under
Yeah,
at
he was-
9 to 10
He's
seconds.
propped up, and you can see him sitting up at the lengthier version, which is circulated.
I haven't seen the lengthier version.
Where
How
the
quickly?
police come in. There's 2 or 3 officers that come in along with some other fans who tackle this guy who threw the punch to.
Do we think alcohol was involved in this, by the way?
No way.
And with the
Completely
guy,
sober.
With the guy falling down, maybe some alcohol was involved in how he
Completely
fell.
sober.
But also, the funniest part is
They came from
dude's-
church, Chad.
The dude's reaction to knocking him out and how surprised he was. He didn't know
know.
what to do. Like, I've punched people before. Usually they punch back. I punch this guy. He's laid out. And he's just kind of, well, I guess we're done here.
It's an amazing punch.
I've always
we're
thought-
not endorsing the puncher as much as I'm endorsing the punch.
is
It is
spectacular.
insanely
It's as square
perfect.
as you can get. Now, listen, I'm a guy that went, what did we calculate? Over 30 years between being punched.
Right.
And a guy who's deserved to get punched in a lot of situations. I got punched by my friend Petey Kelman outside a Steve Winwood concert at the Garden State Arts Center, circa roughly 1987.
The only man to ever be punched either outside of or in a Steve Winwood concert is Paul Kuharsky. Continue.
And I deserved it.
And you were in your teens or early
No,
20s?
this was maybe a summer between college, back out with the high school gang. But then I was not punched until a few years ago during a Predators playoff run, I think the Stanley Cup run, when I was walking back.
2017.
When I was walking back, so this would have been from 87 to 2017, I went without being punched.
Which is quite the feat.
Saying a lot
Quite
of
the
things
feat.
that
Paul,
were
that's a huge
punch-worthy.
feat.
And I never feared getting punched. People just disappeared. I said to a
Well,
guy...
hold on. You also say you take the Rocky V approach of George Washington Duke and say, you touch me and I'll sue. That's sort of your response.
but I never get
You
it.
would have pressed charges on this guy.
Oh, absolutely. But I never have a chance to say, I don't say that in my...
You just say it
in
on
the
air
course-
about it. Touch me and I'll sue.
Right, but I don't say that in the course of saying the things that would get me punched. When I say to the Kentucky fan, oh, they won despite bleep holes like you at a sports bar, when he doesn't punch me, he doesn't know that I'd be the first guy to sue him for punching me.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I got punched in the parking lot of our old radio station when I was keeping an eye on a guy who I thought was going to assault a woman, and he was giving her the business verbally. I walked by her. They were a little bit separate. I was walking by this potential altercation in a motel parking lot that's in front of our old studio. I walked by her. I said, hey, are you okay? Do you need help? She didn't say anything. He saw me looking back at her a few times, told me to mind my business. I was still kind of gauging to kind of dissuade him from doing anything stupid. Next thing I knew, he followed me into the gated parking lot and punched me in the back of the head right as I was getting into my car. This broke my long streak. Of course, the security cameras didn't work at our building, so the safety
Very safe
precautions,
facility.
yeah, precautions put in place there really guarded me and helped me with the police as I wanted.
And they
to
were
file.
they were also very concerned about fixing that for the safety of their own employees. They were really Johnny on the
So
spot.
we'll get
getting
right
that
on. Oh,
fixed.
we're sorry you were assaulted. We'll get right on fixing
Yeah.
that. So that was a great punchless streak, and I'm now on a new punchless streak. But this is the sort of punch I feel I would receive most of the time when I'm due to be
if you're
punched.
going to get punched, you pray
Go all
that
the
you
way.
receive a punch like this.
Really?
One and out, clean.
As opposed to a beating.
Clean, yeah, exactly. I mean, this guy's waking up today and his jaw is sore, but it's not like he's
Could be
scraped
broken.
and bruised and where he's battered from tackling a guy and falling down concrete steps while he battles for his dignity.
Could his jaw be broken?
It ended quickly.
The battle
I think
for
a broken
supremacy.
If
jaw
you're going
would
to lose
be
a fight,
awful. Listen,
go out quickly and get your show money in GTFO.
I drink a lot of protein shakes, but I don't want to have to drink them because my jaw is wired shut as a result of a punch like this.
I've been punched in the ear before, and that's not a good spot to get punched.
Yeah,
Because I feel like I don't know that I've ever fully recovered from the ear shot.
Cauliflower
Like
ear?
I don't. It's not even. I don't know that I hear.
Can we get you one of those
appropriately.
horns?
But Hutton's
like that
right.
you listen through a horn?
You get hit or you get to the ground and you get in a situation where there's other people running
Yeah.
and you see feet. when you're
Near
down on
your
the
head.
ground,
Kicked.
engaged with someone else, and someone else is coming. That's not a good feeling.
This guy left with a shirt on his back. I mean, it wasn't like his shirt was ripped off or somebody tries to break up the fight.
No, it's a very brisk episode.
It was over. In and out.
Very brisk.
Brandon on Twitter
Did somebody
says,
set this to music, by the way?
Someone set this to WWE's good old JR and Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh, it's
where-
always great.
I'm unfamiliar, but
it is
enhances it.
tremendous. It is tremendous.
Sorry, Chad. I cut
Brandon,
you
no,
off.
you're good. Brandon says the guy that filmed the punch has a video on John Boy. The Padres fan's dad got kicked out for vaping. And apparently they were saying something to him about his dad getting kicked out. And
Is it
that's
illegal
how
to
the altercation
vape?
started. Apparently.
In Colorado?
I guess
Was
so.
this in Colorado or San Diego?
It was in Colorado. It was in Coors Field.
Yeah,
in Denver.
It was at Coors. Yeah, apparently you can't smoke them if you've got them there.
Well, it's a ballpark thing. Like no.
Meanwhile,
no
Lance and Jacob just crossed Coors Field off their list of ballparks to attend.
They're making notes.
Can't vape?
Making
No
notes.
thanks.
They go to kids' games where the rules are much more lax.
Should
And
we
Little
just,
League fans.
speaking of making notes and crossing people off of lists,
Oh yeah.
you have the ability
new,
to place names on a list. Chad Withrow has his enemies list through OutKick 360. So as things progress here, as Chad, as you see the smoke come out of the ears on it, whether that's Henry To'oTo'o or Jeremy Pruitt going after his buyout money or
we'll get to
whoever it
that.
might be, if you're complaining about Chad looking too large in this chair right now or his shoes.
Bring it. Whatever you want to talk
David,
about.
David on
If
that
you want to
list.
make the list, he can put you on it.
So you're going to hear a lot of places talk about love everybody and love this and fam and supporting each other and the family and love and love. We're going to be real on this show, and there's
Docket.
a time in life that
Docket.
you just
Docket
got to get someone on your enemies list. You got to put them on there. We'll write it down. We'll check it twice, this list, and we'll let you know.
Chad is
If
a good
something
list
comes up
keeper.
that you got to do it. I mean, look, hate motivates people too. Love should motivate you as well, but hate can also motivate you, and we're motivated by hate at times.
Chad's a good list keeper. When we started as a show together, he started a list of things Paul hates. This thing got so long so fast. I mean, his wrist got tired for different reasons than usual. And
It's a healthy risk.
I mean, he lost this note. This notebook was about this thick, and he lost track of it. This thing held steam for about 6 months, and then he was like, "This is too big a project to take on." So maybe the enemies list.
No one's on it
will
right
reach
now.
these limits.
It's
a
a
blank.
clean slate. We don't come in hating anyone, but there's going
I
to be
come in
reason to
hating
hate
people.
someone.
I come in hating
Paul
people.
definitely comes to hate. But I'm saying for show purposes, we definitely hate people, but they haven't made the list yet. There has to be a reason for them during show time to come up on the list. And I'm not even going to go back in time to my
No,
Henry
starts
To'oTo'o rant
fresh.
about hating someone. But with the Henry To'oTo'o thing, I don't hate Henry To'oTo'o as much as I hate the people who say that you can't hate Henry To'oTo'o if you're a Tennessee fan. Those are the people I hate.
Now, I think once you put somebody on the list, let's agree on this. You put somebody on the list, but then if we circle baback to them, you can put a tick next to them.
Oh,
and then
I like
4
that.
ticks, and then the 5, crossing through the 5.
So then we can have sort of a power
Tote
ranking.
board.
Like a hate power index. They have the FPI, the football power index. We can do an HPI, hate power index, and we can rank the numbers next to the hate list and find out who's at the top of the list.
I think it's a strong idea. All we need to do is follow through.
Yeah. Well, it's right here. I mean, I don't think we're going to forget it. Like, look,
It's ready to go.
you
Well, you
can
need
see
some
it if you're
paper.
watching.
It is at the ready.
Yeah, it's right here. And great job by Sarah Triplett, our
Great
production
job.
assistant
Yeah.
on the artwork.
She's off
on
to
that.
an excellent start.
Great start. We
Keep
got
it
2
up.
other
That-
interns coming this summer, and they've got a high standard to live up to at this point.
Already.
We are off to an excellent start on the show.
We
Coming
are.
up in about 12 minutes, John Loar of Music City Baseball is going to join us about Major League Baseball either expanding or having teams on the move, including the news this week of the Oakland A's. A lot to get to there. When we come back, we'll tell you about the toughest venue to get into based on the NFL schedule release. That's all straight ahead. But first, Chad, let us know about Renter's Warehouse.
Yeah, Renter's Warehouse. We've been talking about them all week, and I love talking about them. We'll continue talking about them because they can help you out in so many situations. A lot of people, they've fallen on rough times financially in the last year. Well, they can help you get cash right now. So if you own a rental property and need cash, and you're worried about receiving rent on time in these uncertain times, or if you're considering updating your rental property or investing in a larger portfolio, Renters Warehouse is there for you. They've got their upfront program going on right now, giving you your rent money for up to a year upfront. Renters Warehouse helping minimize risk and providing financial flexibility so you can build long-term wealth. Renters Warehouse is Nashville's leader in property management. It's the only company providing upfront rent. The upfront rent program is available for a limited time. Call Renters Warehouse Nashville at 615-398-9550. You can see the number if you're watching right now. Again, 615-398-9550, or visit rwnashville.com. Again, rwnashville.com, and see if you qualify. RentersWarehouse.com, helping maximize your property investment potential. Do it the Renters Warehouse way and get tomorrow's rent today.
The highest prices based on the NFL schedule release from yesterday. Straight ahead on OutKick 360.
Most tenants are good people who play by the rules. But sometimes you can get one who's a little deadline challenged. In other words, they're late with the rent. When this happens, you can either spend the precious hours you have left on Earth calling, texting, and emailing them, or you can turn over your property management to Renters Warehouse. Because when we say we'll collect the rent, we'll collect the rent. Need a pen?
OutKick 360 across the OutKick OTT network, which includes YouTube. Subscribe to the channel OutKick 360. You can search it in the bar, OutKick 360 channel. We hope you'll hit the subscribe button and join us live each and every day. The most in-demand games based on average ticket price. This is based off of the NFL schedule release through Vivid Seats. No surprise, Bucks at Patriots tops the list. $1,376 is the average ticket price to that game.
And that might rank as one of the all-time expensive regular season tickets.
$1,376. The rest of this list, I think, will surprise most. I mean, we're not going to ask Chad or Paul to guess these games. We're not going to play a guessing game on the show ever.
Well, you and I were talking about it last night. So.
Well, the Raiders have the next 4 games in the top 5. So it's Bucks, Patriots, and then the Las Vegas Raiders. They rank 2 through 5. Ravens at Raiders, Chiefs at Raiders, Eagles at Raiders, Bears at Raiders, Dolphins at Raiders. All above $600. All of those games right now, the average ticket price above $600 to get in the door in Las Vegas.
This is very interesting to me because the Raiders certainly have a gigantic and not just national but international fan base. But this is something the Titans have been dealing with here in Nashville. And the Titans tickets aren't super expensive. So I'm not putting it in the same classification in terms of the investment. We've talked about, though, Nashville and the Titans organization may be having to accept to a degree that the feature of your city, the main feature of Nashville, is tourism in a lot of ways. And that you being a destination city, and for people saying, hey, I'd love to go spend a weekend in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I'm from Philly, and the Eagles are coming to Nashville, and I could get a decent price ticket, and I could come, and if I'm going to have one huge weekend this fall, and I'm going to go on one Eagles trip, Nashville is absolutely the top place I'd like to go. Well, now, and maybe this is a break for the Titans, less people will come to Nashville for this game, and go to Vegas. Everybody wants to go to Vegas for a weekend, right? You go to Vegas for a weekend, you see this terrific new stadium, and you get all the benefits of Vegas. You gamble, you go to the pool, all of these other things. Vegas might not be loaded with as many black and silver jerseys as the Raiders expect based on this, because those Eagles tickets are not going to all Vegas fans.
Well, and I wonder how much this plays in to the discussion we're about to get into for Major League Baseball. The Oakland A's are having a stadium dispute right now in the Bay Area. Vegas is mentioned as one of those cities. Nashville's another city that we know that the commissioner of Major League Baseball has pointed out as a possible destination city for their entire league. They want to put a team here at some point. The question is expansion, or is it a team on the move? And Chad, our next guest, in a matter of, 2 minutes, John Loar from Music City Baseball and the Nashville Stars is about to join us to discuss this topic.
It's a perfect tie-in because you look at those other, there's 2 cities on this list of possibilities for a Major League Baseball team that Rob Manfred, MLB commissioner, put out there. Only 2 of those 4 cities are true tourist destinations, Vegas and Nashville. How does that help a group like Music City Baseball attract a Major League Baseball team to Nashville? We'll talk about this in the context of what's going on in cities like Vegas and Nashville when we come back.
John Loar, the head of the group, Music City Baseball, next on OutKick 360. Hang with us.
A lot of their stuff. But what about their house? Even in a good market, you should think twice before selling. The smarter financial decision might be renting instead, especially when you hire the professional landlords at Renters Warehouse. Don't sell out, cash in. Visit renterswarehouse.com right now and find out how much your house could rent for.
A rental price analysis is totally free. So what have you got to lose? I'll take that guitar.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Really excited to finally have some in-person OutKick VIP events. We're at 6th and Peabody, Old Smoky, Yeehaw Brewery. awesome day, great questions, good to shake everybody's hand. It's just good to be able to get out and see everybody.
We love to meet with the people that make us possible as a show, the people that tune in, the people that watch, the people that listen.
A lot of these VIPs interact with us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. And now we get a chance to come out and hang out, watch games, and interact with them the same way we would interact with the three of us on a daily basis. It's awesome.
If you're at a VIP event, you're going to hear more about the inside jokes, stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You can ask us anything. We want to be with listeners and viewers as much as possible, so we're thrilled.
Looking forward to doing a lot more of these VIP events as we continue to grow.
It's an incredible experience. I would advise everyone out there, if you're a fan of OutKick or OutKick 360, to sign up and be a VIP.
OutKick 360 across the OutKick OTT network alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton. The news in Major League Baseball earlier this week, the Oakland A's and the stadium dispute, which has been ongoing. We had some public comments come out that with their lease up in 2024, the A's could be on the move if the city doesn't move on a new stadium in a specific location that the team is looking for. If they're on the move, Vegas, Portland, and Nashville are the three destinations that have been put out there through the media, and Chad, our next guest, is heading up one of those destinations.
Yeah, John Loar is the managing director of Music City Baseball, and he is on the line with us right now. And John, you are not currently in Nashville. Can you let us know what you're doing and what you're touring today?
Yeah, sorry it could be live, guys, on Zoom. I'm actually touring the Texas Rangers' new facility and touring Texas Live.
And your thoughts on this new facility, which on TV looks fabulous?
You know, I mean, it's more impressive as you get inside this facility and looking how the the live concept connects to the actual ballpark. And really what's impressive is all the, it's a destination facility, but really all the uses that they have outside of the 81 games for baseball. They're actually hosting all the graduations inside, covered, conditioned, and used year-round. It's impressive.
John Loar with us on OutKick 360. John, we wanted to have you on with the news of the week with the Oakland A's, which I'm guessing is no surprise to you. The A's and the Rays have been mentioned as teams that could be on the move for years now, as well as Major League Baseball expansion. So when you saw the news come out publicly earlier this week, as someone who is invested in bringing Major League Baseball to Nashville, what do you think?
Well, I wasn't surprised. I mean, that conversation's been going on. It's been over 10 years, probably 15 years, about, no expansion until the A's and the Tampa Bay Rays sort of get their facilities issues resolved. So it didn't surprise me. And like I told Mike Organ from the Tennessean when we had chatted, it was, I think it's a good step. I think it's important for Major League Baseball to expand. And, my opinion is I think they should expand. I think it's an opportunity to either have Oakland, participate in a solution, or that, that team travels. I mean, and where they travel, I think it's a West Coast. I can't imagine that team coming to this time zone because it just doesn't make sense. And I think that same conversation, whether it's this year, next year, or the following year, I think is going to be happening with the Tampa Bay Rays as well.
Are we wasting our time to discuss the possibility of the A's moving to Nashville?
I'm not spending any time on it. If that's an indicator, I mean, when it comes out, it's like I was telling somebody that I was touring with today, it just adds about 20 to 30 hours of additional work. I don't really, I don't, you'd have to check with the commissioner's office and get a comment from there. But again, my opinion, which is, for what it's worth, is that, that team stays on the West Coast somewhere.
So if it was the Tampa Bay Rays in the news this week, would you be spending time on that possible move?
Yeah, because I think, our job here for Music City Baseball, and the reason I looked at this market after looking at 8 markets in the U.S. and 2 international markets, Nashville makes sense. And I think I heard you guys on the radio earlier talking about Vegas and Nashville. And, I've looked at all those markets, and, it's really the tourism is the driver. You would ask, what would how would that impact? Can you imagine? It's the tourism impact that you guys were talking about for the Titans. I think that's the conversation you were having about the Eagles. It's really about putting bodies in the seats. I mean, if the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Giants, the Dodgers, or the Rangers are in town in Nashville midweek or on the weekend for 3 days, it's about putting people within the ballpark district and the entertainment district, the development district around it, and really what that does for the community, for the city of Nashville, potentially Williamson County. What impact does that have, on filling up hotels, the impact on restaurants, and just the impact on the sales tax revenue that's generated from that. We've done a tremendous amount of work on the feasibility and economic analysis of the market, and I can tell you the market works. It's a market that Major League Baseball should be in.
I'm curious, maybe you could talk us through a little bit how your organization compares in terms of putting the infrastructure in place to be ready for an expansion team and marrying up with Major League Baseball the way, say, the Seattle Kraken people did it, or previous expansion teams going all the way back maybe to the Marlins did it. Are there parallels there that show a path to success?
Yeah, I think there's parallels and examples. I mean, I think the opportunity really exists, and you got to build a ballpark, right? No ballpark, no baseball. The opportunity to do something historic with the connection that we have with the name, the National Stars, our partnership with the Negro Leagues. We have the opportunity to bring the Negro Leagues to the Major Leagues, and in a market that I think works for baseball, and it's the economics work, the feasibility study, like I mentioned, works. I think it's an opportunity to take advantage of the growth and the tourism in Nashville, the expansion of the airport, the growth of the hotel industry. And I think, whether it's Nashville, Williamson County, surrounding counties, what it shows is you got to build a ballpark and you got to support that. You got to find a way, because it's really not a ballpark. It's in addition to that, it's an entertainment district. I think the opportunity for residencies like Vegas and Nashville exist, where musicians can play. That's a reality for them. I think expanded commission opportunities, corporate uses, and if the city and/or counties don't support that, like potentially in Oakland and/or in the Tampa market, the teams are going to move on. And I think if Nashville doesn't get 100% behind this, whether it's Davidson or Williamson County or surrounding counties, it's not going to happen. So it's that important for an economy, and that's why we've been touring ballparks like the Battery. If you don't believe me, just go to a game at the Battery. If you don't believe me, come to a game at Texas Live. I mean, the mayor, the governors, everybody should be down there experiencing this and hoping that comes to their area.
No ballpark, no baseball. I think we all agree. No money, no ballpark. So where's the financing with things trending towards? I don't know if they're trending towards, but the best new stadium thing we've seen work, SoFi Stadium in Southern California in the NFL, was privately financed. And private financing is the easy route now instead of asking city or local governments or state governments to finance things.
Yeah, when I looked at all the markets, really, there's two things that really sort of drove the process for me being in Nashville. One is, is there enough land, and can you privately finance a ballpark, right? And will that team, or that, whether it's, shared revenues or non-game day revenues, can you justify, being a revenue contributor for Major League Baseball owners. And part of our strategy was to come to this market after I did the work with our group, knowing that it worked, and just putting the feasibility and presentation together to present to the owners of Major League Baseball about the market. And we still plan on doing that. And the big factor or focus now is site selection, whether it's somewhere on the East Bank, whether it's potentially at TSU, whether it's at, a site that we're looking at in Williamson County. They all have different, contributing factors. I mean, the ability to privately finance a ballpark is a big key factor in that. So, can you do residencies on the East Bank? Should it be there? Does it bring the Cumberland alive? Does it increase the walkability? Of course, TSU also has an opportunity to do something unique and different. Maybe, sort of flood the wetlands there and create a marina. Use the waterway in different ways. There's a potential rail station there. With Eddie George going with TSU and TSU wanting to bring baseball back, maybe that's a driver to put a ballpark there in a development over there that, could be a destination of facilities. Williamson County, there's a desire to increase their expansion of their convention space, going from 30,000 to maybe 300,000. So if you can connect that to a ballpark, that market really feels like a battery, like what they did in Atlanta, and I think all three potentially could work.
John, I'm looking at your website right now. Everything looks great. The names on this list look great. But the criticism of you and your group would be it's all appearance. What you're saying sounds great. The website looks great. The names on the website looks great. But until there's billionaires backing this in a move for a Major League Baseball team, none of it really means anything. So I guess my question is, how big a part of your job as a real estate developer in your past is recruiting a billionaire or billionaires, plural, to be a part of this group to own a team? And have you received interest from big business types that would be interested in partnering with Music City Baseball to bring a team to Nashville?
Well, again, our focus this year is site selection and building the capital structure, not only for the ownership group for the team, but also for the facilities. And as we partner with companies like ASM Global, we're looking at a development partner that, we hope to bring on soon. The media piece of this is we've had some interesting conversations. But when you look at the capital structure on the team, we're in conversations with a lot of people about that. And part of our presentation of getting the market is putting the pieces and the foundation together with the holding company structure to be able to attract the interest from the ownership group. And we've localized, the strategy is to localize the investment, which we've checked that box. We have a great core of local investors. We're oversubscribed in our current round. We've closed that round. Now we're looking at building the capital structure for 22 through 26. We're having lots of conversations with investment bankers. We're talking to individuals, and we're working towards that goal and that objective. So I don't get caught up in that. I feel very confident with our group and our ability to put those pieces together.
I know you mentioned the East Bank of the Cumberland River as the ideal spot for this entertainment district you're talking about. You've also mentioned 8 possible locations you're looking at in Davidson, Williamson, and Rutherford counties. If the East Bank is the ideal spot, do you have a clear-cut number 2 option for where you would like to place this entertainment district and ballpark?
Look, obviously, we're having little or no success with the Titans. They have their plans. We've always thought that a family sports and entertainment district that works there would potentially bring a T-PAC over there, so you can add a theater component to it. We'll turn our attention to other areas over there. We hope to potentially look at the scrap site as a possibility. And I really wouldn't say 1 or 2, because I think as we start looking at TSU and just the desire and the passion for TSU and Dr. Glover and Eddie George being involved with this, and some of the concepts that we're looking at to make it unique and different, like I'd mentioned, a potentially marina over there, flooding the wetlands, increasing the usability of the waterways and the railways. You have to solve some problems on getting in and getting out of there. But look, I mean, it's kind of 1A. And then I got to tell you, Williamson County, the site that we're looking at, and it's not several sites. We've looked at 2 sites down there, the Smith property down there, and we've looked at the Ovation site. look, it really, we were just down in Atlanta last week. We went to the Phillies-Braves game to say hello to our good friend Dave Dombrowski. And when we were down there, everybody on our core group, just saw the vision. I mean, you could take the battery and put that in Williamson County because that's what the Braves did, right? They drew concentric circles where their fan base came from, and they said, well, this is where the ballpark should go. The opportunity to do something down there with all that growth continuing to go down there, if you look 3 to 5 years, it may make a ton of sense. So I think all three of those options, have possibilities. And now it's just a matter of getting both the state and the local jurisdictions and the fan base behind this to support this effort, because it's a market that Major League Baseball, I believe personally, wants to be here, and I can tell you needs to be here.
John Loar with us on OutKick 360. John, is there a chance, or maybe it's happened, will Major League Baseball even talk about expansion before they figure out what's going to happen with Oakland and Tampa?
I don't think so. I mean, I think you've heard the public statements, and they publicly don't support us whatsoever. This objective is it's with our group, and it's driven by our group and our strategy. And I think until Tampa and Oakland are resolved, I don't think that they're going to talk about expansion. I think I think it makes sense. 32 teams, 16, divided up, and maybe restructure some of the leagues and travel. I think this market, the South market, is a perfect market for a Major League Baseball team, potentially be in the National League and have the ability to compete with St. Louis, Cincinnati, Atlanta, Chicago, etc. I think it's good for all cities involved in that conversation. I think the collective bargaining agreement's coming up. Hopefully that gets resolved early and gets completed. And Oakland and Tampa get completed. Like I said, Oakland's a great first step. And I think it's, we look at that as positive news. I mean, the needle's going to move somewhere, right? They're going to go somewhere. They're going to stay in Oakland with a new ballpark, or they're going to relocate to a West Coast presence. And so I think all those things are good news for us. I think, getting on the north side of COVID and the impacts that have happened in Major League Baseball last year and this year, and the collective bargaining agreement, once we get on the north side of that, I think our group's hoping, and I would think the national market's hoping that the conversations turn to, bringing the Negro Leagues to the Major Leagues and the opportunity to do something historic for Major League Baseball and for the national market and for baseball in general, and bringing the Nashville Stars to Middle Tennessee, to Tennessee market.
Is there a scenario, John, where if the Rays don't find something in Tampa Bay or St. Pete and then shop themselves, that they sell themselves to Nashville, strike a deal here, and you guys are just left on the outside looking in, unfortunately, for you and your group?
Well, I mean, so the strategy that I have based on the acquisition deals I've been involved with over the years, and just knowing how, the conversation of no ballpark, no baseball, if you don't do the things that we're doing, the conversation continues. It goes from 10 to 15 to 20 years. Our efforts here, if we can solve some of the pieces of this puzzle by putting the real estate deal together, the ballpark deal together, the media deal together, the ownership group together, and those pieces are in place, whether it's Tampa Bay or expansion, the opportunity exists for a team to travel or relocate and or expansion. So I think it's a win-win scenario for everybody. So if the Tampa Bay Rays ended up in Nashville, whether they, would rebrand themselves the Nashville Stars, we would hope so. And there's an opportunity to participate for our group in an ownership component of that, or an acquisition component of that would be of interest. The real estate deal obviously is a big deal. The ballpark media deal is the entertainment venue, because there's 81 games in baseball. There's 360 days, 5 days that in a year you can use this facility for concerts and conventions. So it's well beyond baseball. Baseball is the reason why. It's a catalyst. But if you really look at it, this is an entertainment venue, covered and conditioned and used year round. So we think either way, it's a win for the Nashville market area.
John Loar, the managing director for Music City Baseball. John, you're speaking to a group that understands the value of the city of Nashville and the fun that would be involved with Major League Baseball in the city. So here's hoping next time you have the opportunity that you join us in studio and we can continue this chat. We appreciate the time today from Texas.
Thanks so much.
That's right. So MLBMusicCity.com. Sign up, join our website, get our newsletters, support our efforts, and I appreciate the time, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Enjoy your trip.
John Loar has been our guest here on OutKick in 360. And when we come back, our thoughts on some things to unpack with what he said. Plus, in about 10 minutes, we'll switch gears to the Tennessee Power Hour and the Tennessee Volunteers with Brent Hubbs of Volquest.com. Straight ahead on OutKick 360. Hang with us.
Thinking of selling instead of renting, you might be missing it. Even in a hot housing market, selling your home can leave money on the table, while renting can give you a rich blend of benefits. Not just cold hard cash, but steady, reliable cash flow. When it comes to selling versus renting your home, renting can make a lot more sense.
Find out how much your home will rent for. RentersWarehouse.com.
Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook, all social media outlets at OutKick 360. Instagram, full of stories and photos, videos from behind the scenes. You can interact with us there. And on Twitter at OutKick 360, we read tweets live during the show. You can interact with us no matter the time of day at OutKick 360. Find us on Twitter and Instagram. OutKick 360 is back. We hope you'll share the feed wherever you're watching today, including on YouTube, on Twitter. Search us out, OutKick 360. Coming up, Brent Hubbs, Volquest.com with the very latest from the Hill in Knoxville. All of the sports will be covered with Hubbs and the top headlines of the week. But the headline in Major League Baseball involves the Oakland A's and whether or not the A's are going to be on the move if the city itself doesn't build them a new stadium where they want it built, or jump in and be a part of that stadium effort there. Chad, your thoughts on hearing John Loar, who heads up Music City Baseball, trying to get his foot in the door with MLB, saying that Oakland's likely to stay somewhere on the West Coast if the A's do choose to move. It's raise or expansion or bust.
It's a weird thing to discuss as a story, and only for this reason. I 100% believe everything John Loar tells us in that interview and what he's trying to do. But John Loar's a real estate developer. So, I mean, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to go to the Battery in Atlanta and say, man, this would look cool in Nashville on the East Bank.
Sure.
I mean, you get the right collection of people together that will all jump in, and all these celebrities, and say, yeah, I'd be for that. But being for that and doing that are two completely different things. So that's why I asked him the question. Here's the criticism. You've got a good idea. A lot of people could have this idea. It sounds like it's great for Nashville. Who's funding this project?
Yeah.
Who's the billionaire backer? Who are the billionaires that are there? And they don't have that right now. And Paul, you brought up the point that if it's the Rays or the A's coming in, well, they own the team. So they don't need this group to do this plan.
Right.
They could just take the plan and the idea and decide to go to the city of Nashville and say, are you willing to, pun intended, play ball with us and help us build something like this?
What's proprietary to the Nashville Stars, to Music City Baseball about this? If you're hooking on to the hope that Tampa Bay is going to come to you, well, he said, they could have a situation where they want us to acquire them. They could be into our real estate deal. They could be into our media deal. Well, that's all well and good, but they could also want to do all of those things themselves. The city has to be into those deals. And why would the city build a ballpark without a team? First, you need the Rays in. So if the Rays are coming in, I think it's far more likely the Rays are going to want to do this themselves and not have some middleman who's set things up for them. So I'm a skeptic, right? The Rays, when the Titans came, the Titans negotiated a deal with the city of Nashville. They didn't negotiate a deal with somebody who had set up a framework for pro football in Nashville. And I think virtually any team is going to do that themselves, unless the Rays decide we can't make this work in Tampa Bay, we want to sell, and then we don't see the money here with Music City Baseball with the type of financing that you need in what we're talking about. So it just seems like there are too many elements missing. And then if you're an expansion team, what the league is going to say is, okay, everybody who wants to buy a baseball team or buy a new team in our league, come to us. And these guys will come, as many others will come, and guess what? They're going to be how many more, Hutton, who have billionaires in their group who can offer more?
Unless you're Major League Baseball and you facilitate the merger. If you're Major League Baseball,
pair a
behind the
millionaire
scenes,
with
you're
them.
pairing up the funding and the discussion points and the land and the property
With their
and the build
vision.
and the blueprints here.
Right.
And you find an owner who wants to move, and you merge the two together and say, here's what we need to do. If you want to go to Nashville, here it is.
Right. But there's a lot of hope there, and he said publicly they don't support us whatsoever.
The Titans.
So,
The
no,
Titans.
Oh, and
no,
baseball.
he would he said they don't have anything going with the Titans, but he was talking about Major League Baseball. So as of now, they don't have any support from Major League Baseball.
They're only, to me, their only real recourse here in making this vision come true is that you get on, he kept saying, the north side of COVID. We're on the north side of COVID now. Coming out of it, finances should be better. Major League Baseball's in a good financial spot. They decide to expand by 2 teams. I think if they expand by 2 teams, Vegas and Nashville make the most sense. So then they have positioned themselves in the spotlight to be the group that baseball would go to and say, got a billionaire? Because we like your plan.
Or
attach a
introduce a
billionaire to this
billionaire.
plan, and then you guys are now the ownership group and you're the real estate development group. Again, John Loar is a real estate developer. He's not a guy with the finances to own the team. So he has put together a good real estate development plan for what he says are 8 different locations in Nashville, but they really want the East Bank. He also says that we're having little to no cooperation from the Titans on anything on the
Titans
East Bank
have no
of
interest
the
in
river.
this.
They've got
They
no
wanna
interest
own
in it. So to me, the only thing that could happen is Major League Baseball expands and picks Nashville and picks this group to help find them the owner that will bring a team to Nashville.
3 things. Vegas and Nashville could be full with the A's and the Rays before they get to expansion. The billionaire, I mean, Major League Baseball could, like you said, Hutton, introduce the billionaire to these people, but the billionaire, most billionaires are going to say, I've got my own people. I've got my own real estate developer. I've got my own, all of these divisions that you're talking about. So why am I going to make new relationships with these people when I've made my billions on relationships with my own people?
But if they don't have people in Nashville, that's why.
Well, and
you
the
need
third
help
thing
in the
is
city you're going to move to.
help, but not necessarily the big thing. And
You don't
thirdly,
get a team by sitting down and waiting on Major League Baseball to come to you. You do it by doing exactly what he's doing. You get your group together and you
applaud
go
that.
tour and
They're being
meet
proactive.
with owners.
They're being proactive.
He's doing more than just meeting and meeting with the ticket rep for the Texas Rangers today.
I mean, they're being proactive, but I think it's still a lot of hope involved. The one thing that they're doing that I think is very good and healthy for Nashville that may pan out into nothing is they're coalescing Nashville's hope for Major League Baseball.
Right.
Right?
The push.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, who's not into this? Who's not saying, yeah, we like the idea that you're making a big push for this and you're giving us a central location for all of us to put our hopes and dreams and support into?
Brent Hubbs of Volquest.com. Friday means the Volquest Power Hour in the second hour of OutKick 360. Hang with us.
Tenants can have all kinds of issues, but when Renters Warehouse handles your property management, we take the hit. The refrigerator light bulb burned out. Little Tommy broke a window. There's a critter in the basement that could eat a cat. There's a hot tub in the kitchen. Mary Jane in the closet. Pirate on the roof. Someone had a party. Someone released the Kraken. Indoor roller derby. Indoor compost heap. Unauthorized sublet. Cuban cigars. Food fight. Dirt fight. Skunk fight. Anything else?
VenturesWarehouse.com.
The 360 Masters is back. Hey, it's Hutton. Hope you'll join us on June 10th for a one-of-a-kind event with OutKick 360, other great writers and producers from OutKick, including David Reed, who will throw his back out again for the second annual event. Thursday, June 10th, you can sign up on Eventbrite or just follow us on Twitter at OutKick 360. 100% of the proceeds will go to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Tennessee. Hope you'll join us for a great event. Get your team today and join us at Topgolf Nashville for the 360 Masters. Glad you're with us for the Friday edition of OutKick 360 across the OutKick network. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate that. And the new YouTube channel, OutKick 360. Subscribe, hit that bell, and be alerted every time we go live and every time that we post new content. We appreciate that. And if you're listening on podcast, and if you found the link through Volquest, appreciate you joining us, and we always love having Brent Hubbs and Austin Price on for the Volquest Power Hour each and every Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern, noon Central here on OutKick 360. Austin Price on assignment today, which leaves Brent Hubbs with us live from Knoxville. Brent, great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing fantastic. Let me break it down a little of Austin's assignment for you guys.
Yes.
We snuck off yesterday and played a little golf. The pro shop had a Peter Millar section in the pro shop. I've not seen him since. So I'm really at this point in time. But hopefully he'll rejoin us next week because I left him at the golf course yesterday looking at Peter Millar clothing. And Paul, for you today, I wore nice clothing. I took my hoodie off 4 minutes ago just for you.
It's beautiful.
As soon as I get done, I'll put my hoodie back on, Paul, because I know my wardrobe seems to affect you every week.
It's beautiful, but it's not Peter Millar.
It is not. No, it is. You're absolutely right. It is not. That's for sure. Hope you guys are doing well.
We're doing great.
We're doing very well. We were discussing earlier this week with Josh Heupel the decision to put Tennessee on Thursday night for their season opener on September the 2nd. Curious to get your thoughts on Tennessee debuting on national TV a couple of days earlier than originally scheduled.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. It is not the most convenient thing for some out of town fans. We know that, and I understand how it's a bit frustrating for some of those fans who, you know, will want to make their way and they've got to take an extra day off from work, or they just can't go because they can't get that day off from work. But it puts more eyes on Tennessee on a Thursday night because of the television audience. And for the fans who are going to the game, I think it's a more comfortable experience to play on a Thursday night than to be at noon on a Saturday or at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon where the heat index and the humidity could potentially be, you know, near triple digits. And Tennessee has certainly experienced those games. And then the other thing, too, is this is not groundbreaking. This is becoming commonplace for Power 5 teams. This is not like, I mean, used to there was the stigma, oh, you're playing on Thursday night means you're not this or you're not that. It's really not the case anymore when you look at the number of times Tennessee, Alabama, other schools are opening their season on a, quote, non-traditional Saturday. Tennessee's done it a lot recently.
So, Brent, we interviewed Josh Heupel earlier this week, and I think all three of us came in with really no preconceived notion about Coach Heupel and no real expectation with the interview, and I think all three of us liked him by the end of the interview, and he seemed like a genuine guy, and like everything he was saying that he truly believed in. The fun aspect of the program was something I asked him specifically about, and it seems to be a constant theme with him and his players. Is this the right approach with this group based on the group he's inheriting and what they've been dealing with from a coaching standpoint the last few years?
Well, I think it's resonated with this group because I think that the group that has stayed feels like, you know, there's a level of engagement there beyond just football. I'm not going to knock on Jeremy Pruitt for an hour, but Jeremy Pruitt, when you talk to Jeremy Pruitt, liked to talk ball. It was about ball. The other thing, too, is over the course of the past year, you've not been allowed to gather with people. So, you know, some of these guys, particularly the young players, it's a brand new concept. Wait a minute, I'm going to a coach's house for dinner? We're going to a baseball game? They just have not been able to do that over the course of the past year and a half. So that feels really new to those guys. But if you talk to people, big picture, long term, at Central Florida, at Missouri, that have dealt with Josh Heupel, he is about engagement and relationships beyond the football practice field. And I think this team has responded to that. Does that mean they're going to win more games? I can't say that. But I do think it means that there's the commitment level is good and there's an enjoyment factor to being a part of a program who's in the middle of a pretty serious rebuild.
So you'd rather a coach be optimistic as opposed to pessimistic? One thing that jumps out to me with Josh Heupel in our interview is optimism, and I think it's genuine optimism. My question for you, though, Brent, is his optimism well-placed, or is this a guy taking over his biggest job he's ever had and not fully understanding the conference he's about to play in and some of the teams that Tennessee's going to see on their schedule? Or do you get a sense that Josh Heupel has reason to believe that, hey, we may be better than some people think based on the top players on this roster?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, I think he believes that there's a program and a fan base that's pretty beat down, and all they hear is about how bad they're going to be. Okay, so he is not wanting to create that notion, and also he doesn't want to beat up the kids, right? I mean, he doesn't want it to be, well, we got to wait till we get our players here to run our system, and suddenly those kids feel like they don't want to be a part or they're not a part. I think by nature he's an optimistic guy. He understands this league because he's been in it as an offensive coordinator. I think that the thing about the optimism is I don't think he's selling 10 wins optimism. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he's trying to sell we're going to win the East. I think he's selling we're better than 3-7. Okay, we're not going to be a total train wreck like some people have thought that they would be. So I think the thing with his optimism is it's good to have, but I don't think it's over the top because I don't think he's selling something that's completely unrealistic. Now, if his offense doesn't work, they're not going to be very good, period. But he believes in his offense because that's what he does.
Brent Hubbs of Volquest.com with us on OutKick 360. Brent, is it fair to ask this question? Maybe it's not. If we know that if not for Danny White, maybe the Vols don't even look his way, right, in this search. But if not for Danny White, does Heupel turn this job down?
No, I don't think he turns the job down. But I don't know that he gets a phone call if it's a different AD either.
Right.
Okay. But I don't think he would have turned the job down. I think there's some situations at Central Florida that he didn't feel like that he had maybe complete control over. They had some issues there, I think staff-wise, and some unusual circumstances there that I don't think he was looking for a bunch of jobs, but I think if Tennessee had called, he would have listened and if had been offered, I think he would have taken the job. I don't think he would have turned the job down at $4 million a year and a chance to be in this league with a long-term guarantee. I mean, there's a safety net to this job a little bit because of the NCAA investigation, right? I mean, it's, that tempers some expectations on people because, if you got a bowl ban or you got a loss of scholarship, maybe you get a little bit of a longer leash that way. So, no, to answer your question, I don't think he turns the job down if offered.
Well, but I bring that up, and you bring up an interesting point about the safety net with the investigation. I was looking at it from the opposite end of why you would want to jump into a job that is with a lot of criticism that is involved in that, a lot of pressure within the SEC structure. And a part of that has to be his relationship with Danny White. That we know. But that's interesting that you bring up the investigation as almost a positive in a way for year one, because you're able to establish some things with the expectations being a bit lower than one may have for a new coach coming in replacing Pruitt.
Well, and look at his contract too, right? Depending on what the penalties be, his contract gets extended a year. So if they get hammered, he gets another year on his deal. Well, what does that give you? Bigger buyout, right?
Sure. Okay,
so the leash, the leash is not going to be as short because it's going to cost you more to make a change there. So if you're looking at life, kind of life-changing type money, okay, then you can come into this league, you can come into this job, and if the punishment's harsh, you get an extra year on your contract, which only brings the money factor more into play. And look, most coaches out there are looking for 5-year deals, right? With a good buyout in case it doesn't work out. We'll move on to the next one, particularly younger coaches. So I don't think that I think if you, depending on how you look at it, some coaches who were candidates looked at it, and particularly established coaches, maybe a James Franklin or a guy who is in a playoff situation, okay, like the offensive coordinator at Clemson looks at it and goes, you know what, I'm going to take a better opportunity job, a job that is not as big of a rebuild, okay? But Central Florida's not going to the playoffs until they expand the playoffs. I don't care if they go unbeaten. It ain't going to happen, right? So you're sitting there going, in the job I'm at, the best I can do is go unbeaten, and everybody's mad because we didn't make the playoffs. So you finish the year mad, right? Because we got screwed because we didn't get in. That's the best we could do. If we do less than that, people are going to be really disappointed. So maybe you go restart your clock. I think that's why he takes this job regardless. Because Central Florida's almost capped themselves a little bit, right? But because they hit the mountaintop. Scott Frost took them unbeaten, right? And they advocated to get in there, and they didn't get in there. So I think there's a little bit of a cap feeling to Central Florida in some ways as well.
So the follow-up I have, why did Tony Elliott turn that down?
Because I think he feels like he can get a job that's a better immediate winning opportunity. He's sitting at Clemson right now, and I'm not suggesting Tony Elliott doesn't want to work or doesn't work or anything like that. He does. They got about 4 games a year they got to prep for, which 2 of them are in the playoffs. The rest of that league, they don't really have to work real hard, right? They get a lot of free time. And he's making $2 million a year as the OC there, a little over $2 million. He got a fat raise to stay, right? So why would you leave that situation and not go to what's more of a, quote, guaranteed winning situation, right? I mean, he's in – I mean, even though he's not a head coach, he's in a little better position of leverage than Josh Heupel was. So I think he can cherry pick what job he wants. And I think that's what Tony Elliott's going to do. I think he's waiting on 1 or 2 particular jobs. I mean, why won't Matt Campbell leave Iowa State? Right? He's in a good spot, good money. They're happy there. He's waiting on the right job. There's a lot of guys, either head coaches at a smaller place or, and you see that more of the smaller places in basketball, but a lot of coordinators are waiting on the right job, because if they take a job and they fail, do they get another chance? So as
we wrapped up yesterday, Hutton got Chad steaming. we asked him to simmer overnight on the idea that Jeremy Pruitt is pursuing his money from the University of Tennessee in light of everything that unfolded there. I would like you to further steam Chad Withrow with what you know.
First of all, I'm not
this.
mad about him trying to pursue his money. Let's get that clear.
You'd be mad if he gets his money.
I'm mad that a guy who was so bad is going to get all that money to not coach.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Brent, you probably agree with me that it gets old to see coaches fail into a ton of money with a buyout. I don't get it when it comes to that.
What's the status of that money, and what's it going to take for him to get it?
Well, I mean, I think the question that the university is going to be is how hard do they want to fight it in terms of going to court? How much Jeremy Pruitt's going to fight it, right? Because it's $12 million. So if you're the University of Tennessee, do you want it to sort of just go away and you say, hey, Jeremy, we'll give you $4 million, we'll give you $5 million, let's just disappear here, okay? Now, or does Tennessee say, you know what, we've got the goods on him so much in this investigation that there's no way he's going to get any money or we're going to give him any money in that. My guess is, knowing Tennessee's history of settling, there'll be a settlement. Jeremy Pruitt will not get $12 million, okay? I will be dumbfounded if he gets a $12 million buyout. But I will be dumbfounded if he gets 0 as well, because of the university's history of settlement. So I think they will settle it at some point. What that dollar figure looks like, I don't know, but I think they'll ultimately end up being some kind of settlement to completely put that behind them and move on, because that's typically what they've done through the years.
Now, Brent, this is something that did have me steamed 2 days ago in talking about it. I think that we've gone
I'm stunned you've been steamed.
Yeah. We love the word steamed on this show also. I also love the nice steamed oyster. That's also something else we love. So the Henry To'oTo'o deal. I feel like we've gone so far in the direction of we're pro-athlete, we're pro-student athlete, we're pro-player. Players can never do anything wrong. And I'm of the opinion that if you're a Tennessee fan, you absolutely have the right to be angry with Henry To'oTo'o for the back and forth, for not making a decision quicker, and for deciding of all the schools he could have gone to go to Alabama and play against Tennessee. Oh, by the way, one of Tennessee's biggest rivals. Oh, by the way, the alma mater of the coach who got your program screwed by the NCAA that's probably telling Henry To'oTo'o to go to Alabama. I'm not advocating going after the guy on social media, but for people to say that Tennessee fans have no right to be angry that Henry To'oTo'o picked Alabama really pisses me off. Am I in the wrong here, or do you agree that Tennessee fans have every right to be disappointed in that decision?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about being a fan, right? Because you can be absolutely hacked off, mad, pissed, steamed, whatever phrase we're going to use, that a guy's going to the rival, right? But if Jalen Waddle had picked up the phone 2 years ago and said, hey, I want to come to Tennessee and catch footballs, everybody would have went, I'll meet you at the state line. Okay? Well, I mean, it'll look like Barney Fife bringing in a parade, right?
I mean, Brent, I am with you. I would welcome him open arms to Knoxville. But I'd also be pissed if I were Alabama. And Alabama fans have the right to be mad if that happens, right?
Right. And that's the beautiful part of being a fandom. The point you're making about Henry T that I think exasperates it is the fact that he did carry on he was the face of Tennessee for a year and a half. He was the guy that was at every media session. Tennessee was branding him as kind of the face of their program, right? They let him come in a month late last summer because he wanted to stay in California to be with his dad for Father's Day in June. Okay, they did everything to keep him his freshman year when he was threatening to go back home because he was homesick. They fly out. He's the only guy they went to see, right? When things were getting rowdy and all this stuff was going on with potential coaching changes, they all get in a plane with Kevin Steele, and we're all going to fly out and, hold hands and sing Kumbaya and bring him back. He never comes back. He wants to come back at one point, it appears, for spring practice. Tennessee says, hey, you can come back for spring practice, but we need you to come out of the portal. Well, I'm not going to come out of the portal. Well, wait a minute. You're going to want to come practice 15 practices here, take somebody else's rep to get some stuff on tape for some other schools. So to your point, Chad, yes, the way he did it exasperates the anger. But yeah, in the world we live in right now, nobody wants to see their guy go to the other rival school. I mean, they just don't want to go. I mean, you shouldn't personally attack him, but nobody ought to be going out and buying an 11 Crimson Henry T jersey because I just love Henry T. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's
Yep.
I mean, that's not the way. I mean, was anybody wearing a Clowney Texans jersey to a Titans game when he joined the Titans team? I mean, look, when he was with the Texans, you totally disliked the guy, right? J.J. Watt, right? You hate the guy, but if he came to your team, hey, we'll be in line to buy the jersey. That's part of being a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wish ill will to the kid. I don't want him injured or anything, but I have no hesitation saying I hope he never plays a snap at Alabama. I hope he's not good enough to play at Alabama. I hope this hurts his NFL draft potential, and I'm not afraid to say it about him for what he did with Tennessee. Now, clear this up for me also, Brent, because I know you guys were following this story closer than anyone. Was he in Knoxville working out in Tennessee facilities at one point when he was in the transfer portal?
No, he came back and got some stuff. He came to town, and when he came to town, it was the thought that he was going to work out, but he wasn't in town long enough to do any of that stuff. I mean, he passed through is essentially what he did. But no, he did not come in and spend a week with his teammates, and that was kind of what everybody thought was going to happen, but it did not end up happening. Here's the other thing, too, about Henry T, where there's a little bit of some people, I don't want to say feel sorry for him, but to give him a little bit of a pass is most people know how involved his dad is in the decision-making process. Okay, now you want to be mad? His dad's quote about how we should have never gone to Tennessee, we made a terrible mistake by going to Tennessee, it was the worst decision. Now that ought to hack you off, right? I mean, because the kid only started from day one, led the team in tackles. It wasn't like he didn't get to play. Right? It wasn't like he was some disaster here as an individual player. So that part only adds to Chad's disdain for things at this point.
He's steaming. My steam.
Hubbs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brent, while we're talking about playing and playing time, this kid's going to Alabama and he's going to play like a star. behind that defensive line, is he not? Let's go ahead and let Chad know what Henry To'oTo'o is going to look like playing within Alabama's
Get ready.
defense.
Yes. I mean, he's got plenty of help in front of him.
Unless he gets
now,
homesick again.
Alabama,
You never know. Daddy might come in and say, "You got time to go back to California. The little baby's homesick. Time to go back." Tuscaloosa, Brent, is further away than Knoxville from his home. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I do think his girlfriend's gone on a mission, so I'm not sure that she's back home for him to be homesick for at this point either.
Where's the mission?
To answer it's not in Tuscaloosa. I will say that. To answer your question. They got a bona fide first rounder at linebacker for next year. And they've got another guy who's been in their system, who's a good player, who's going to be an NFL player. And here's a Henry T who's never been through spring practice, who Alabama's going to find out where they got from. There was a point in time in the spring where there were the Alabama people were saying, we're not going to take you. We're not going to take Henry T. Now they obviously did a 180 and took him because they believe he can play. He will have to compete there more than he's ever competed at any point in his football life to be a starter and to be a star there. But he's going to be a factor. He's going to play. There's no doubt about that.
Brent, there's something we asked Josh Heupel about also, and I think this is a very difficult dilemma now for coaches all across college football, especially we'll Tennessee as an example. When you're not one of the 4 to 6 power programs that are competing for a playoff spot every single year, how do you flex with players? And what I mean by that is, and I asked Josh Heupel, and he gave a pretty good answer about it, the balance of telling a kid to GTFO the moment he says, I want to go in the portal, to recruiting a kid to stay there, and how much time do you spend on that kid and or waste on that kid if he's already on the way out? And we can look at Tennessee with the balance of guys who left, and they got hit hard in the transfer portal, but I'm looking at some pretty good players that they were able to convince to leave their program to come to Tennessee. So how do you look at that balance, Brent, especially for Josh Heupel, and how much time he spends re-recruiting a kid that pretty clearly doesn't want to give him and his program a chance?
Well, I think this is where the NCAA has to help coaches out with the transfer portal. And what I mean by that is they've got to put some parameters and some windows in on when you can go somewhere and when you can't, okay? This idea that we're going to sit here and a kid's going to get mad on September the 10th, say I'm going to the transfer portal, and then basically not show up for practice, right? Like, and then what are you going to do? You're going to go to the dorm room and beg him to come back, and you know what I'm saying? I mean, we got to put some kind of parameters on this to where it's not a daily re-recruitment process. But I think it's a human nature part, right? I mean, we all deal with this. If somebody doesn't want to be a part, at some point they don't want to be a part. And you just have to say, hey, we'll go on to the next one. We'll go on and find somebody else. But because I think that you have to worry about your locker room if you cater to the star player or two who's threatening to leave all the time. If a guy's all the time, well, I didn't get this, I'm out of here. And look, that's what kids are going to do, right? That's the crutch. Okay? I mean, that's the world we live in. It's the same kid that's playing the video game that said, hey, you know, I threw an interception in the first quarter in the Madden game. I'm hitting reset and starting the game over. Okay? It's the same mentality at a different level. I'm mad because I didn't get to play. They're wanting to move me to another position, this, that, or the other. I'm leaving. I'm packing my bags and leaving. Now, what you hope coaches also are hoping is the portal doesn't work out for everybody. And I'm not trying to be mean, but you got more people going in, right, than they find a place to land. It's like an NFL player, Paul, who's playing the free agent game, thinking I'm going to get big bucks, and then it rolls around, and all of a sudden he didn't have a good year, and his value in the free agent market is not nearly what he thought it was going to be when he went into that world, when he decided not to sign the contract extension, okay, or whatever the case may be. I don't know all those rules, but it's the same parameter. A lot of kids are sitting here today who left a Temple, or they left someplace and they're going down, or they've left an SEC school and they're going down a level and not going laterally. The kids who are going laterally are going to know where they're going before they ever hit the portal. to your point and to your question, Chad, I think as a coach, there's a threshold. I don't know what that is, but there has to be a threshold where you say, you know what, fellas? If you don't want to be here, you don't want to be here. Enough's enough. I'm moving on. We got to move on because it's for the betterment of our program that you're not going to hold us hostage daily, basically.
Brent, do you think that Heupel has maximized the portal to his advantage as much as you thought he would, expected he would? Volquest covers this a lot more closely than I do in regards to the transfer portal and players on the move. We know there are tons of players on the move. Have the Vols taken advantage of that?
Well, they've hit need positions, okay? Look, and Austin's talked about this, and he's exactly right. You take the quarterback till you get a quarterback right. You just keep taking the quarterback till you get a quarterback right. So that's why they've taken Joe Milton, okay? You say, well, that – they already took a transfer quarterback. Well, you take one till you get the guy you think is there because it's the most important position. It's absolutely the most important position that you've got to get right. I am a little surprised that they took another wide receiver. That's not a knock on Javonte Peyton. I think Javonte Peyton's a good athlete. I think he's a good player. But I'm a little surprised that they took another receiver. They had to get some defensive linemen because some of these defensive linemen who are currently on the team, I don't think are going to be here. I don't know what Darrell Middleton's ultimately going to end up doing. Excuse me. I don't know what Alexis Johnson's status and some of these guys are going to be. They had to get some defensive line help. If there's one spot, Jonathan, that maybe they needed I thought they needed somewhere that they haven't gotten anywhere yet, that's corner. I could see them needing another corner or wanting another corner in the transfer portal. There's a couple of guys they're talking to out there that they've had some conversations with who are in the portal. We'll see if anything develops from it. I could see them taking a corner. If they got a corner, I couldn't sit here and say, you know what? They didn't maximize it out because I think they hit on every position of need. Now they could have taken 3 linebackers in the portal because they're that thin at that position, but they've helped themselves in the most positions of need, particularly if they get a corner, because I think they're short at corner. I think they have a little more confidence in their defensive backfield than I do. I just don't think they have enough depth back there.
Brent Hubbs with us from Volquest.com. Heupel mentions new age recruiting a lot. He said it multiple times in our chat, and he's done it multiple times both at Volquest and in press conferences. What does he mean by new age recruiting? What was Tennessee not doing that he's bringing?
Well, I think it's relationships. I think it's recruiting more than just playing time, more than just the NFL. More than just here's how many guys I've put in the league. It's more relationship recruiting. I think we see this, they want more of a quote bond there. I think the other factor is, how are you going to recruit with name, image, likeness? That is a game-changing element in recruiting that everybody's just kind of scratching the surface on that. New age recruiting too is does the guy have the personality that you think is gonna stick it out? I mean, we're sitting here talking about the transfer portal. Let's say you find running back X. Okay, Jonathan, you really like him. He's got great talent. I mean, he can make all kinds of plays. Then you look and you go get his high school transcript from his guidance counselor, and you look, and he's playing at his 3rd high school in 4 years. Is that a red flag? Years past, probably not as much, but maybe now it is because the transfer portal. If this guy's moving this much, why? You got to dig into that and research that more because maybe he's not willing to get through some adversity, right? It doesn't go perfect. And he's leaving. Now, maybe he's got justified reasons. Maybe mom and dad's transferred jobs 3 times. But maybe he's moving because he wasn't the starter there, right? Or he didn't get enough carries there. Or he didn't like the offense there. Or, whatever reason. Those are the things you've got to dig into beyond just the weight, the height, the hand width, and the combine types and stuff. You've got to find out the guy's personalities more than you have, I think, than you have had previously. And the name, image, likeness thing, how can you sit in a living room and show a kid how he's going to make money at your school through the name, image, likeness deal? Because that's the biggest change coming in college athletics that right now people think they might have a slight handle on or somewhat of a handle on, but they don't really have a handle on it because we've never experienced it before.
Chad, what's Alabama's plan called?
The advantage.
So does Tennessee have the foundation of some sort of plan? I know it's different state to state, and the NCAA or the SEC has to set some kind of clock that doesn't give certain schools in certain states a head start and the like. But do you have a sense of where Tennessee is with the whole NIL thing?
They've got a plan that there is a moving target. It's still a working plan. I think that they are. A lot of people are using an outside company. I think Tennessee's has done some consulting with someone. I don't know if they have anybody on contract at this point. I know everybody in the college athletic world, when they looked at the Georgia plan, went, huh? Wait a minute. 70% of it's going back to Georgia athletics.
Ridiculous.
That plan was a red flag, because Georgia will have to tweak that plan, because everybody's going to recruit against that. They're going to recruit, hey, Georgia doesn't really want you to make money. They're taking all your money down there. We're not going to do that to you. So everybody, and that's why I think Georgia made a mistake throwing their plan out there in detail. I think the more you can kind of lay low until you sort of figure out what the NCAA is going to say the parameters are, and not reveal what you're doing specifically, I think the better off you are. Because I think Georgia's going to have to walk back what their plan is right now, because they're going to get beat up in recruiting by it in a big-time way.
OutKick 360 with Brent Hubbs of Volquest.com, the Volquest Power Hour, part of the Tennessee Power Hour here on this Friday edition. Coming up, recruiting is about to really crank up for Heupel and his staff. We'll get Hubbs' take on this, as we've just been rapid fire right out of the gates with football. And also, the sheriff is back in town.
Yes, he is.
The very latest from Brent Hubbs on Peyton Manning's visit.
Bang.
Straight ahead on OutKick 360. Hang with us.
Dropped the kids off at the pool, sunk a sausage, cooked a meatloaf in the porcelain saucepan, downloaded a brown load. And now they need someone to plunge in and clear the air. So, would you rather that call go to you or to Renter's Warehouse? Thought so. Remember, when the call's about number 2, you'll be glad you work with number 1.
OutKick 360 with Brent Hubbs of Volquest.com, normally also Austin Price, but he is on assignment today. Now, he did mention that he's got a big meeting today. He called me this morning, Hubbs, and said that he was on assignment. I also saw where the sheriff is in town. Peyton Manning is in Knoxville. Is there any chance that he's having lunch with 16?
I don't think it's happening, but in all seriousness, the circles that he's running in some meeting, that it wouldn't be a stunner development if there was something. I think the sheriff is currently in the building, in the Neyland in the Anderson Training Center, visiting with the coach. Sheriff's having a fun day is what he's doing, because he's sitting in a room watching tape, and he is clinicking today with Tennessee's coaching staff, which he absolutely loves to do. I mean, it's one of his most favorite things to do, because it brings him back into the sport and what's been his life for forever.
Chad, that is an example of one of those questions. As I'm asking and setting this up to Brent, I'm thinking, I'm not sure if Austin wanted that out there.
Yeah.
That he could potentially be having lunch
We may
with
have just
Peyton.
blown his cover
So
right now.
Maybe this is an exclusive to Volquest that Hubbs doesn't want promoted yet.
Everyone's flocking to Calhoun's on the river now after Hutton says that, to catch a glimpse of the sheriff in Austin.
Good job,
Lunch.
No, like I said, I will. I mean, at last report, the sheriff was in the Anderson Training Center with Tennessee staff and visiting with them today. Of course, he's going to throw out the first pitch tonight at Lindsey Nelson Stadium for the baseball game. And you got into town yesterday and visited with some of the players. And the one thing you can say about him is you can't question his love for his alma mater. I mean, he absolutely loves Tennessee and does whatever he can whenever he can, and has continued great relationships at Tennessee, despite the fact the same people aren't there more than 3 or 4 years at a time, it seems like.
Chad, and Lindsey Nelson Stadium, host of a regional that's just been announced.
Yeah, so Tennessee announced as one of the regional host sites. Brent, how big is that for Tennessee to be hosting a regional? And this is also the first series where it's 100% capacity. And it's sold out this weekend against the number 1 team in the country, and Tennessee, a top 5 team. We don't talk a ton of college baseball on this show, but obviously a big weekend in Knoxville, punctuated by the fact that you just mentioned it. The sheriff himself, Peyton Manning, is throwing out the first pitch tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big weekend, and it's another step towards normalcy. The fact that you're going to have 3,300 fans in the stands as a sellout all weekend long. This is a baseball team that the fan base has gravitated to for 2 reasons. One, they're winning, and Tennessee fans are looking for anything that's winning. And B, they're a fun group. I mean, it's a group of guys that show a lot of toughness and grit about them, and they've been fun to watch. So it should be a big deal. It should be a great weekend and a great series between 2 really good teams. And then for the regional part, it tells you about what Tony Vitello's done in his time at Tennessee, and he has resurrected that program in a hurry. It's disappointing. The NCAA has already come out and said 50% capacity for regionals and super regionals and the College World Series as well. But, you're going to play in front of some people, and Tennessee's going to host at home, which I don't think is a bad thing at all.
Could that regional have been worth money to him, or is it further along that they need to have gotten for him to have earned a bonus that he won't in fact earn?
Well, yeah, I mean that's part of his bonus structure. He would have gotten a percentage of his base salary for hosting a region, and then it's a different number. It goes up if they have a super regional at home. It goes up if they make the College World Series. But all those coaches signed that pandemic reduction agreement, and that wiped away their bonus structure. Rick Barnes did not get a bonus. Kelly Harper did not get a bonus. Tennessee's tennis coach did not get a bonus for winning the SEC tournament. And Tony Vitello's not in line for any of his bonuses based on the document he signed with the reduction agreement that expires on June the 30th of 21. So just in a little over a month.
Brent Hubbs is our guest. Brent, I have to read this on air. My cousin Nathan in Washington, D.C., is a huge Vols fan. Just sent me a text. I think it sums you up perfectly. He says that Brent Hubbs is the Alabama of Tennessee coverage, which I thought was well said. It may be one of the best compliments you've ever received, so congratulations on that.
Great. Well, thanks, Nathan. You've just steamed Chad. It might be my last appearance on this show because I'm linked to the rival school, right, Chad?
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the rival school, we mentioned the advantage earlier, the NIL plan for Alabama. And, Brent, you brought up a great point, a big case study in the new name, image, likeness being Arch Manning in the very near future. Please explain.
Well, I just think that, he's going to have such name recognition already to begin with, and his ability and the brand, and that family understands branding more than anybody else. I mean, think about it. Look at every commercial that Peyton has done look at the imaging of Eli. Okay, I mean, Eli on draft day had a bad image, right? Because he refused to play in San Diego. Has anybody talked about that really since? Yeah, I know he won a couple of Super Bowls, but that family got that to go away faster than anything in the world, it seems like, went away. They have a team of marketing, a team of branding around that family name. So I think in recruiting him, your plan for name, image, likeness is going to matter pretty significantly, because he's going to have his pick of playoff teams, of stable programs, and all of those types of things. So what's going to be the edge for them? I think one of the things, if you're a school, if you're trying to get an edge, you have to present that business side of the plan in a great manner, because I think they're going to pay attention to it. They're going to know probably more about it than you do. So you better be ready with a really good plan, because I think that'll be a big factor in his recruitment.
So I am a loyal listener of the Volquest podcast every week. This is one of my rituals as I mow the yard every week, is to listen to you guys. And Brent, you laid out one of the more unbelievable facts that I've ever heard on this Volquest podcast. Tennessee currently has a player on their roster, may not be there for long, but that committed to Derek Dooley as the Tennessee coach. Please explain this fact.
Darrell Middleton committed as a wide receiver to Derek Dooley, who is now a defensive tackle who's played through, I don't know how many presidential administrations that ends up being. I don't know how many athletic directors that ends up being at Tennessee. Dave Hart, John Curry, Philip Fulmer, Danny White. So that's 4 ADs, probably 3 presidents, maybe 3 university presidents. He committed as a ninth grader at that point, and he's linked all the way back to Derek Dooley. He's certainly had a crazy journey to get to Tennessee. Now we'll see where his commitment level is in terms of playing for Josh Heupel and finishing it out here. He was obviously not around at the end of spring for the spring game. I know he's met with the Tennessee coaches, and I think the question for him. It's not about transfer portal, but it's a little bit about what you were asking about earlier, Chad, and that is you're either with us or you're not. And I think he's got to make a decision as to whether or not he's with Tennessee beyond just wanting to show up on Saturday and play. I mean, he's got to make a real commitment to doing everything the right way on and off the field and getting himself in a position to play. He has NFL talent about him, no doubt. He's just never been engaged and locked in the way he should be to maximize that talent.
Look, body type and development as a player, but is there anything more fitting than Derek Dooley recruiting a wide receiver who's now a defensive tackle?
Well,
he's had time to eat.
In fairness to Derek Dooley, nobody believed he was going to be a wide receiver. Everybody thought he was going to be a defensive end because he was so big, but he was, he wanted to play. He wanted to be a basketball star and a wide receiver. So I don't think Tennessee recruited him, and I don't think he ever played a snap of wide receiver at the junior college level or anywhere else. But at the time he committed, he was going to be a wide receiver. And I think Tennessee said, hey, buddy, you can say whatever you want to say, but when you weigh 290 pounds, coming back here, you're probably not going to play wide receiver. You put your hand in the ground.
Hey, explain, with recruiting heating up and cranking up, what Heupel and his staff are about to get going on campus and throughout the country.
It's going to be a zoo on campus, around the country for all campuses. I mean, I saw a kid on Twitter today who put down his travel plans. I think he had like 10 stops in the month of June for camps. I think Arch Manning is going to see something like 8 places or 9 places in the month of June. You got a group of kids who have not seen anywhere. They've not been anywhere. And it's going to feel like the last day of school when they get turned loose. I mean, kids are just going to scatter and go to as many places as they can go to and see as many places as they can. And it's not just class of 22 guys. It's class of 23, class of 24. They're going to want you to camp. You're going to go camp at some places. You're going to come an unofficial visit, walk around, see a coach face-to-face for the first time. And then you're going to have a bunch of kids taking official visits as well. I think Tennessee could have anywhere between 15 and 24 official visitors in the month of June, on top of the camp kids, on top of other kids that are going to come and take unofficial visits. It's 30 days of chaos where you better ratchet it up, and you got to figure out how you can spend some quality time with those kids and not just make it kind of a meat market type deal, not just for the class of 22, but for 23 and 24, because you're making first impressions there. And for Heupel, it's really important because he wasn't recruiting any of these kids when he was at Central Florida for the most part. They weren't in the state of Tennessee recruiting. They weren't recruiting a ton of SEC athletes because they couldn't get involved there. So this is a really important month for Josh Heupel and his staff. Really important.
Brent, I know that you and Austin just went on a tour of West Tennessee with some of the high schools in that area, and even had notes in the general's quarters this morning in the war room about a couple of those prospects that Tennessee's in good standing with. Overall, because of the newness with Josh Heupel in the state of Tennessee, and now things opening up where he can host visitors, is he making headway with some prospects in this state as this state becomes more and more important?
Yes, he is, and this month is important, or the month of June is important to continue to do that. It's tough for the 22 class, okay, the kids in the 22 class, because kids don't want to wait, right? Kids are going to commit earlier and earlier, so that they're playing a catch-up game there that's really, really hard. But you see what they're doing in the 23 and 24 class in particular, and some 22s as well. They have made some inroads. They've had some really important dialogues with Jalen Lewis out of Haywood County in Brownsville, Tennessee, that I think is important. He's to be in town the first week of June. Cody Jones is a kid who's committed to Michigan, but his coach who was recruiting him has just left to go to Buffalo. I think Tennessee's trying to get in the door there. That's a 22 guy, a class of 22 guy, and then a bunch of 23s and 24s. Josh Heupel said in his opening press conference, Tennessee was a priority for him. And he has made that, he has shown evidence of that by the way that they have tried to make inroads in the state. They got a long ways to go because the kids in this state have never seen Tennessee be successful. So there's not a loyalty there to Tennessee like, Chad, you had when you were younger, or I had growing up following it. This is not, kids are not tied to Tennessee because they've never seen Tennessee succeed. But they've done a good job of making inroads there for sure.
So, Brent, I had a chance to call a game on television earlier this season with Brandon Miller at Cane Ridge, 5-star small forward, can go anywhere in the country. He's visiting Tennessee basketball and Rick Barnes coming up in June. They've got another 5-star player from Dallas visiting the program as well. They've had back-to-back top 5 recruiting classes in basketball, and with some of the momentum with these guys, that they're positioning themselves for maybe another top 5 finish a year from now. Brent, is this just simply a program that we can now expect, as long as Rick Barnes is there, is going to be competing at a national level with all of the Blue Bloods to be a top basketball recruiting class year in and year out?
Yeah, I think you can. I think you can. One, you've got a shift in some Blue Bloods and some, some things there, obviously, with what happened with Roy Williams leaving North Carolina and those things. I mean, it's a blueprint. It's harder to do in football because you got 85 scholarships. But Rick Barnes' blueprint is something that people out there are noting. And for the first couple of years, everybody's like, wait a minute, we brought this guy in from Texas who had these 5-star players, and he didn't recruit these guys. Why is he not recruiting 5-stars? Why is he not recruiting the big-name players, right? He's retirement Rick. It's over. He's just come to sit around and just cast off to the finish line here and take some more money. What he was doing was he was establishing his program. And he used Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield. And look, he hit on Grant and hit on Admiral, that they became really good players, okay? But he created a culture, and he created a culture of development. And every kid you talk to, why are you interested in Tennessee? They can get me better and get me ready for the league, okay? So here's Grant Williams. He's a 3-star nobody wanted. He turned down Ivy Leagues to come to Tennessee. He's now on an NBA contract with the Celtics. Keon Johnson came for 1 year at Tennessee. He's getting ready to get drafted in the top 10, probably. So you've got Springer's going to get drafted in the top 20 in just a year development here. So you've further enhanced your culture of what you're about. That's the recruiting style of Rick Barnes. I'm hard to play for, but I'm going to love you for the rest of your life. I'm going to be there for the rest of your life. I've got evidence of that, and I'm going to get you ready for the next level. And that's got everybody's attention around the country in basketball, including all the 5-stars, or many of the 5-stars, which is why you're seeing Tennessee so prevalent with those guys.
Volquest.com, the very latest on all of the things and all of the news going on with Tennessee athletics. Brent, as always, thank you so much. Please let Austin know what he missed out on throughout this hour.
I hope the Peter Millar was worth it, Austin.
Yeah. And hey, get back to the bean fields out there in Knoxville.
We're going back to thinning beans and putting out the okra. So we've got I'm gonna put on my hoodie, Paul. But hey, collar for you today was pretty sharp, right?
Pretty
Paul?
sharp.
A little more professional. Pleased you today because you were really bothered by my hoodie last week. I mean, you were really.
He was triggered.
You look terrific.
You were steamed. I mean, you were really steamed last week. So
you look terrific.
I mean, I really want to. It's important that I please you with my attire. So I hope that this looks okay. If you don't like it, send me a message. I'll try to improve
I'm
it
sorry
next week.
you took it so hard. I thought you could handle it. You look terrific.
I want a full ensemble next week, Brent. Like, not just a suit, like an actual put together ensemble by some stylist. That's what you should bring to the table.
It's no Peyton with Peter Millar like your partner's doing, but it's good.
Okay, well, thanks. So you like my Adidas gym pants? That go with it, right?
That was a little jarring.
I always enjoy it. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks.
Brent Hubbs.
Business up top, party down below. What I always said about him. It's the mullet of Tennessee coverage.
And he logs off.
See you, buddy.
Hubbs making it happen for us with the Volquest Power Hour. Been a fun week.
I've made a wager against you, Hutton.
You're betting Yankees over Orioles.
In game, I've taken the Yankees money line. I've taken your starter, Dean. Is it Kramer? Kramer under 5.5 strikeouts, and I've taken Corey Kluber over 5.5 strikeouts.
Fair.
Let me go and tell you exactly what this is what the Braves are going to do now.
Plus 302.
So the Braves just got swept by the Blue Jays. They're now 3
Acuna's
games
down.
500. They're going to battle back for about a week and a half. They're going to claw their way back to 500. And the moment they get to 500, they're going to lose 5 straight. Again, then they're just going to try to claw their way back to 500. Very complicated relationship with 500 for this Braves
I'm going to
team.
surprise you. I wanted to make fun of Acuna not being able to run through first base, but I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, to be honest with you. It's an awkward thing to run as hard as you can and then take a shorter stride on the bag. And quite frankly, while people make fun of it, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often that a guy screws up his leg. What's the result? What was the verdict?
The MRI was negative, but it's just a day-to-day thing. He could play tonight in Milwaukee.
I won't be surprised if
it
it hampers him. It looked ugly.
Last thing the Braves need. He is their offense right now.
2 quick things on the way out. First, hit the YouTube channel.
Hit it.
Over the weekend, OutKick 360. And if you go to the bar, youtube.com, just search OutKick 360 channel. You hit the subscribe button. You hit that bell. You will be alerted on Monday when we go live, but you will be alerted anytime we post new exclusive content to the channel. Again, it's the OutKick 360 channel on YouTube. Also, FanDuel.com/OK360. Paul mentioned he's betting the Yankees over the Orioles and taking some props with that. You can do the same. Some great offers if you're a new user to FanDuel. You can log on. You can bet up to $1,000 risk-free. You'll get the $1,000 back risk-free in site credit if you lose your first bet by opting in the first time you make your bet and your first deposit. That's FanDuel.com/OK360. You can bet UFC this weekend. You can take some futures on the NFL schedule that was just announced and some odds that we went through yesterday on the program and much more. Again, that's FanDuel.com/OK360. And a shout out to Renter's Warehouse as we end the week. Their debut on the show this week. Great product, what they offer, Chad, and they've been with us for years now, and we're thrilled that they're a part of the show here with OutKick.
Yeah, you've heard me talk about them. You've seen their spots during the breaks. rwnashville.com. Check out that upfront rent offer that they have going on right now and give them a call, 615-398-9550. Boys, what a week.
Shout out. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you want another shocker, an account called Go Cats with a Kentucky logo just followed me on Twitter. Dogs and cats living together. It's
big time.
You rip on Brent Hubbs, and Kentucky fans are now
Come
fans
jumping
of
on board.
Paul
They're all
Kowalski.
in with Paul.
You haven't heard my Kentucky
UK Hearts PK.
couch
here on this
burner
show.
has just
that
followed.
Kentucky fan pissed that my cousin didn't say that Brent Hubbs is the Kentucky basketball of Tennessee coverage.
This guy's getting ready
Well,
to burn a couch this weekend.
He said you're the Alabama football, so it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You're an Alabama football fan, you're a Kentucky
That's
basketball
true.
fan.
Yeah, it's all the same to them.
Same person.
I'm
Same
stunned
person.
by this
Shout out
debate.
to
Blue,
Lance
the
Lee,
same color
Jacob
to them.
Swanson, Sarah Triplett. David Reed pulling double duty today in for Becca Risley, who had a well-deserved day off, and Sleepy Danny, who's waking up for the afternoon to prepare for Outkick the Show. We're back at it on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Don't block the box. Do lock the locks. Don't look at Chad doing that nonsense.